what I suggest is that Larissa will move on her presentation, and because time is moving on, and if we have an issue, if we have some time at the end, sorry, we'll take again the new question that I've arrived, okay? So Larissa, yes, let's continue. Thank you.
So just some of the common gaps that we find during implementation. So as I said, implementation, every time I have a project where we have to trigger PS5, I know it's going to be, let's say, complicated. It's going to be, it's very resource intensive. And there is a lot of discussion and trying to convince the client why they have to do something that maybe under national law they will not be required to do. So the common gaps that we have, and this was raised in one of the questions, is about the compensation amounts. So that's why we asked the company to hire an international social expert and with partnering with a local expert to be sure that the compensation amounts are really replacement costs. And in one of my projects, for example, I would take the case of Mali, because the Cameroon one, I think the replacement cost was very, very good. In Mali, the compensation amounts that we were suggesting was not really going to be able for people to replace, for example, land, because the land in the area where the project is happening has just raised enormously, because there is a lot of it's very near Bamako, and it's a very highly dense area, so there is no compensation cost. So sorry, there is no replacement cost. So there we have to review the compensation amounts and see, okay, how this can be improved. But this is done with a social expert through analyzing the socioeconomic conditions in the area. So that it is very important. This cannot be done just by someone. It has to be a social expert. Then also, as I mentioned before, a lot of clients and also some governments think that compensation is livelihood restoration, and this is not the case. So this is not the case, and that's why a lot of our projects, we have this livelihood restoration plan, which have activities to improve things in the area, and this can be health services or school services. So it depends on the project, and also helping vulnerable people to change activities. And we focus also on women, for example, to find them other activities if they don't have any. So livelihood restoration is something that is also done by a social expert, and it's something we focus more and more, because that's the only way to make the whole project sustainable on the long run. Well, the second one is linked. So unfortunately, we have a lot of examples where the measures taken as livelihood restoration have not been successful, and they have not met the intent of restoring livelihood. So then the client has to go back and review, and that's why we are asking also clients more and more to monitor very closely, sometimes every 6 months or every year, what are the conditions, and to be able to adapt any mitigation measures. So if there are mitigation measures, they should be able to, if the mitigation measures are not working, then they should be able to adapt quickly. Then the problem also with government-led resettlement is that most of the time, as I said, people are compensated, they take the money, they leave for 2 years, and they come back to the area. So we have a lot of examples, some power plants where there is around the plant there is what we call a security buffer zone. People were resettled, they were paid by the government, they left for 2 years, and now they are back encroaching in the project area. So for a client, it's very, very difficult to say, okay, what can I do if I was not responsible for compensation, and I cannot take out these people because this is not my land, this is government land. So these are a lot of things. When compensation is done incorrectly, without consultation, without considering livelihood restoration measures, people will come back to the project area and create encroachment or create also other social impacts in the long run. So those are the common gaps: compensation, livelihood restoration that is not well implemented, and then government resettlement, which has been badly done, and after years people come back and encroach in the area. That's what we normally see. So some of the red flags, as I said at the beginning, almost a no-go is forced eviction. So it is very difficult for forced eviction to be able to comply with the requirements under PS5. I have not seen a project where we have forced eviction in the last maybe eight years. So forced eviction, we normally don't do the project. So then we also have to be very careful, as I said at the beginning, to assess in detail the willing buyer, willing seller, because we had cases also in Africa and in Asia, all over, where although the company says it is willing buyer, willing seller, in reality it's by coercion. So it's done through coercion. So it's something we need to analyze in very carefully. Later, the physical resettlement, and if title of land is available. If it's not available, which is the case in most of the countries where we operate, then we need some type of community approval that yes, that this person was there and this is their house or whatever they have there. So a lot of the resettlement action plan is done in consultation with the chiefs and also with community. Sometimes also resettlement is not tied with a specific project. It was maybe done before. It was maybe done by another company, not specifically for us. So we have, and this happens a lot with brownfield projects where resettlement might have happened 10 years ago or even before. So we are investing in a project which is not directly doing the resettlement, but resettlement happened way before, and it was done maybe even by another company. And then something that I raised before is the government is very sensitive about the legal rights. So they don't want to create a precedent. First, create a precedent that we are asking to pay more compensation that required by national law, like monetary compensation. And the second one is also that we are, let's say, giving rights to people that they consider illegal. And this could be illegal to land or illegal to a natural resource. So, and this could be any resource. It could be fisheries. It could be sand mining operations on mining any natural resources. So they are very sensitive. So we are very careful on how we design the documents. So we are not implying that we are not following national law, and we are not creating a precedent for other projects which will be dealt by the government. So yes. So this is most of the times what we get, because in a lot of the countries, I wouldn't want to say a percentage, but the government is the owner of the land and also the resources. So what we get is the client would tell us, yes, everything is fine, everything is clear and free and clean, and I can do my project. But then we go, and unfortunately, we find this is extreme, but we find something, and then we go back to the client and we say, sorry, but you have people in there, you have people that will be impacted, you have people that you have to move physically, or there is going to be an impact economically. We have to do something about it, and PS5 is the way to address that impact. So there is a discussion with the client, which at the beginning sometimes are surprised that we're asking for this, but so it takes some time of for them to understand why it's going to be a risk for them not to address this issue the way the IFC Performance Standards is asking them to address. At the end, there's going to be an issue if you don't address it now. There's going to be an issue at the in the long term. Yes. So, what are the things that we normally think when we have land acquisition? Is okay. Does PS5 apply, and who are the ones that we apply, that PS5 would apply? I will give you an example, and this is, for example, in hydropower. In the area of where the project, the expropriation area, you might have, for example, sand mining operations, or you might have fisheries operation. Those are going to be resettled under PS5 because those are going to have to leave the area because there is going to be a restriction on land. So PS5 will apply for those people. But then after the dam, you have still in the riverbed, you will have still fishing operations and sand mining operations. And for example, for sand mining, after you construct a dam, there is going to be a decrease in sand. So they are going to be, let's say, there's going to be an economic impact on that activity in the long term. And although PS5 is not applicable for those people, we will treat it as an impact of the project, and we will address that impact under PS1. But let's say the entitlement will be the same because they are sand mining operations, so we cannot distinct them. Okay, you are in this area, and we will not. We are going to treat them as equal. But if we want to trigger the PSs, for one, they are going to be PS5 applicable, and for others, downstream of the dam, it's going to be PS1. So why is very important? Because we have a lot of discussions in, is PS5 applicable, yes or no? So applicability of PS5 is very important, and it's not so evident. Then the next one is, was compensation adequate, and was it provided, and when? No, that's another point to think about. Then what I try to highlight throughout our conversation is, okay, the livelihood restoration, is this effective, and is it in place, and was it due process? Was the compensation, the whole process, what people were expecting? Are the people, let's say, convinced that the company has done all they wanted to be able to address the impact? So those are, let's say, 4 just highlights of things that you should think when PS5 is triggered. Yeah. And then just to finish, there are some tools in the website. In the internet, you will find some. One is the handbook. We're trying to update the handbook, but it's still not available. And then we have also induced in migration, which is a problem in a lot of our projects. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, so thank you very, very much, Larissa, for this very interesting presentation. Sorry for the little internet